Hello, hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? You have found yourself on the Toy Armada with Aaron Archer on this Friday Live. I am Aaron Archer, a 30-year toy veteran that likes to talk about why and how toys get made more so than the actual toys, and the thought processes behind how companies might be thinking and how licenses and toy lines live their life based on markets and whatnot. Bunch of us here today. How's everybody doing? Bigum, Cringe McCringle, how are you? Star Warrior Prime Reviews, how's it going? Bad Flip KC in the house. Ken Christensen, ladies and gentlemen, artist extraordinaire. Timu, Ninjatron, of course. T-Formers 2002, Hans. Arche, how's it going? How's everybody doing? Robots are cool. Today we're going to talk mostly about Botcon that was held last weekend. This time last week I was probably at an Irish pub, or on my way to an Irish pub. Real good times there. Nice. Met a lot of good people at Botcon. So I thought we would just generally talk about what I did last weekend a little bit and then get into whatever. Hope everybody's well. Hope you stay cool over the next few days. Seems like it's going to get hot. So I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the spiritual home of Botcon, where it had originated with the Hartmans and Carl and John. So it was interesting to be back there, second year in a row. It was a little bit of a rainy weekend, also Father's Day weekend. So not as many people as maybe I would have thought, but certainly the American otaku that showed up were excited to be there. So I'm going to talk about that. Got the badge. Good times. Let's see here. One of the exclusives that they hooked us up with was the Cliff Jumper model kit, or model building action figure. I don't know how these are actually thought of. I guess they're called model kits. So that's kind of cool. Cliff Jumper. Not kind of my kind of thing. I may do something with this at some point. Raffle it off, or I don't know, do something different with it. Let's see. Got some pictures here. So it was a good weekend. Nice to go to a con where I kind of knew my way around after a second time. So, this was kind of what my setup looked like. I forgot my sign, which, my bad, but I remembered all my art this time and my sketchbooks and whatnot. Sold a lot of the instruction sheet things, as well as some of the comic covers and catalog covers and things like that. So that's what my space looked like. I did do some art while I was there for people commission-wise. So I did an Astro Train and a Demolisher. This was on a blank cover comic that they gave out to everybody in their packet. So I drew on a couple of those over the weekend. Pretty cool. The Irish pub I mentioned, I went there Saturday night for dinner, as well as Friday night for just some social activities. But the fish and chips at this place was amazing. And they had Harp beer on tap, which was very nice. and that was good. Got to sit down with Joe Kide at the con and at that Irish pub, and then again on Sunday night, I sat down with him again at the hotel lobby for a little while. So we probably cut up for maybe 2 hours all told. So those of you who don't know, Joe was a instrumental designer on Cyberverse as well as Thrilling 30, and came in as a intern co-op with me on Armada, and did a lot of deco iteration on Armada items, mostly the redecos. I can't recall which ones right now, but he certainly did a lot of them. And it was great to catch up with him. He is at Lego. He's been there over 10 years doing Minecraft sets, and so that was great to just see, with all the layoffs and different things in the news you hear and see. It was just great to see a guy, still at it, still doing great stuff at a great company. And, he also did the Lego Optimus as well. So talked a little bit about that. Jiro has made his first appearance of the night. And so it was great to talk to Joe. Joe and I worked together quite a bit. And always good to catch up with an old colleague. The con itself was, pretty good. I was me and Robbie Musso were kind of the head of Artist Alley, and they had a whole bunch of artists down the center, which was kind of cool. So I was kind of in a nice location around some dealers that I've interacted with in the past. So that was a good time. Those of you who have seen me at cons, I kind of do the con. I'm there interacting, so it's all good to me. So I had a fun time talking to a bunch of different guys. Sam from England, I talked to him quite a bit. Good conversations there. And a bunch of people. Let's see. And then the last night I was there, I ended up, when it quieted down, sometimes the guests are still around. So I was hanging with Tony Prado, one of long-term vendors at the Botcon and various TF Transformer conventions. And we ended up hanging out with Flint Dealey and Michael C. Hill the last night for a few hours, just telling stories and old Hollywood stuff. And those of you who know Flint, he can tell a story, and he's got a lot of them. He's been at the Hollywood Games since he was young. So just interesting to hear both those guys' stories, and spend some time with Michael C. Hill, who we've always vibed with, he and I, at shows, and just never really get a long form sit down. So we vibed, had a good time. Gonna try to get him on a podcast here just to talk about the 80s writing of those Transformers G.I. Joe shows that he worked on, and just compare and contrast a little bit from how things have continued to evolve in that space. I thought that'd be an interesting thing to hear about a little bit. So that was fun, and kind of a good cap to the weekend. So ended up hanging out with these two gentlemen, which was a lot of fun. Stories that involved Orson Welles and Gary Gygax and just all kinds of stuff. Really, really fun. Hey, Tamag, how's it going? Did I pronounce that right? Good times, definitely good times. I don't take a lot of pictures at the show, so that's the bulk of my pictures. Don't really have a lot. I'm so busy talking and telling stories and whatever. Joe and I did a panel on Friday, which was pretty good. That we just talked about different aspects of what we enjoyed about the work, and did a Q&A. And that was fun. Fun to do it with another former Hasbro person. Kind of hear a different take than just my take, which I've done a lot of Q&As at this point. Bring a different vibe to the energy of the answers. So that was kind of cool. Let's see. One of the vendors that was there had heard about my plight, about my Vector Prime Safeguard having missing an arm. So I got a replacement for my entire Safeguard Minicon. So that's cool. So my Vector Prime, my vintage Vector Prime back here, can now be complete. Where is he? Right there in the middle. And then pulled out the old Botcon Energon Megatron recolor. Pulled him out this week and put him up on the shelf. He's one of those weird ones with the Hasbro markings where his nose is cut off and there's numbers scrawled across the vehicle form. That could be a different discussion for a different day. I was also given this piece of artwork. Really nice coloring. Had a nice conversation with this young lady about her project. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. Cutter wings. So I'm going to check that out. But that was nice that she wanted to share that with me. And then I had talked to another vendor that was set up, artist vendor, for a little bit. And she had brought over one of her stickers of Jazz. I believe that's Jazz. So that was cool. I always appreciate that. It's always a nice gesture to get anything from an artist. So that's cool. Yeah, maybe when they make... there's a rumor that they're going to remake Vector Prime. I don't know where this rumor comes from, but maybe the Minicon will come with it then. So that was cool. They had given these sketch cards out too in the I guess the entrance pack. So I ended up with a stack of those. I'll probably do something with them. Probably won't bring them to Canada. That seems a bit excessive. They had a staff exclusive, which was a custom painted Minicon of some sort. So that's kind of cool. Again, I don't know if I'll hang on to that or maybe raffle it off or do something with that. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people talk to me about this rumor. But I'm not here to confirm news like that, but that's what people had been talking about. Robbie Musso had sold out of his sketchbook last year, so we traded sketchbooks this year. Black and white, but all his fun designs and various covers, pin-ups, concept work. It's mostly Transformers and robots. Very cool. Always good to hang out with Robbie. Didn't get to hang out with him as much this year as last year when he and I and Perez ran around. But one thing that I can say about the setup in Fort Wayne at the moment is, hey Patrick, how are you? is it's a little bit spread out amongst a couple of hotels in the area. And those hotels, one has a bar in the lobby, one does not. And it just doesn't have a central hub location where everybody's kind of on top of each other in a good way, where it's like convention all night or nighttime convention. Or my favorite is just, convention hotel where the whole dang place gets overtaken, and the restaurants and the elevators and the bar, it's all, us robot people. Those are the most fun. And this setup is a little challenging for that. You certainly find it, but you kind of have to walk up and down the block a little bit, and you miss people in the interchange of going to dinner and stuff. So, just a little bit of a long-termy gripe, but still not that bad. Not that bad. And then the guy I was sitting next to, William McDonald, he gave me this. This is a metal print. Golly, see the reflection of my whole setup. You see the bones? But that's kind of cool that it's metal. So this will probably get hung up somewhere here in the back. Very cool. Very appreciative of that. Again, we've been talking a little bit the last few weeks. I didn't know these little contributions I made early on, like the Red Dragon, was gonna kind of stand the test of time in its own ways. And so when I see just awesome executions of, some of the design work I did way back when, it's becoming very humbling and very feels pretty good. I think it's all digital. I think that's all digital. That's what we were talking about. Excuse me. And then the only thing I bought with my hard-earned money at the convention was this generation's book, 2024. So it has a big feature on Optimus, as it's kind of overriding coverage. It has a poster with all the Optimuses, and kind of covers a lot of stuff that's happening in Japan, obviously. It's got some great imagery in here. Some old-timey G1 kind of specs and early days. We talk about the wood models. There's a little bit of that in here. Pretty cool. And then they get into the toys of the last few years. So a lot of the reissue stuff that I was previously connected to. So I picked this up. Gets into a little bit of everything of the last few years. So that's fun. Like I said, this whole back end has a bunch of story of Convoy. Interesting. You can almost tell what designer worked on it based on their control art. A lot of this reminds me of a Jima-san, but I could be wrong. And a little bit of a train comic situation going on in the front. So that's what I got for myself. add to the collection. Have a nice record of all those reissue or remakes of the items that I had a hand in. Nice to have some imagery of that to go to, and ready stop shop. So that was largely my Botcon experience. Got to see a lot of old friends and old faces, as well as new ones. Met some good people from all over the world: England, South Korea, China, all over the U.S., Canada. So it was fun. I hope everybody that went had fun. I certainly think everybody wished there was more people there, but the people that were there had a good time. So we'll see how it goes in the future. Is it Dia Gemini? Yeah, the gimmicks era. We're in a different era of toys for sure, and depending on why you like toys, yeah, a lot of the feature play and secondary motion and things that bring surprise to plastic items have largely been stripped out, and overall in the entire business, outside of very young toys, a little bit, and it's definitely, you can definitely see it change. I mean, we're in a replica world where older people are buying the toys, so those features aren't necessary, and so on and so forth. But if you're intrinsically entertained by magic of toy products, it's a disappointment these days. I look at all the replica stuff and I'm just like kind of bored a little bit. Even I think the G.I. Joe 6-inch stuff is great for what it is, because I love G.I. Joe as a kid, but it's just bigger, better versions, I don't know. I don't know if they're inspiring fun and play. Probably aren't inspiring play. I probably didn't get name dropped in the book. Yeah, T-Formers 2002 popped in for 2 different times. In and out to see people. But he lives pretty close to where we were, so nice advantage. Yeah, so I'll just end on the gimmicks thing is what I learned on, and it kind of the rules of toys go through that lens, and since that isn't the lens toys is looked at through today, I almost don't always understand what the point is of modern toys that don't have some sort of feature or play value or upgrades or some sort of plastic magic. I'll try to coin a new term, whatever the plastic magic of the toy is. I enjoy that over replica only. And to that end, there's a toy line out of South Korea that's coming to the States at the end of the year called Metal Cardbot, and it is really nice product. It is like, I think Cybertron and Web Diver had a baby, and mixed with a few other little things. They're just really interesting products. Great forms, good transformation, kind of fun feature play, the ratcheting, the scale, the kind of posability, just fun stuff. I look forward to getting deeper into that line when it comes here, because it was really compelling to me. And as you guys know, I don't necessarily collect toys, or certainly transforming toys beyond the ones I had some connections to. So for me to kind of be charmed by a transforming robot line that isn't Transformers, there's a high bar there, and I was really, really charmed by the items that they had there. I met two of the representatives, and they were showing off. I think the show's been out in Korea for a few years, and it's in China as well. And so they had multiple waves in production sitting there to be played with, and it was really, really fun. Really fun. And I look forward to seeing where that goes further. Yeah, for those of you guys that like the Energon, Cybertron, Armada era, give yourself a little treat and at least go look at those items. They're quite robust. They're not tiny. They are big toys. My understanding of it is if you want to import the original Korean ones, it's kind of expensive. But if you want to import the Chinese ones, there's some slight color alterations, but much more affordable. Same product, just different retail markets. And apparently it's coming here at the October kind of timeline. So we'll see how that goes. Put a pin in that one. Yeah. I have never done the diorama where they're fighting necessarily, other than with these blockies I'm looking at off screen with the posability, because I just needed all the space I could get. So when you guys see my shelves at old Hasbro or here, everything's fairly straight up and down just to maximize the space. But posing them all out would be cool. Yeah, there was a car I liked that had above Cyber formula, that kind of super F1 Japanese looking kind of supercar. That one was intriguing. There was some of the power-ups were really cool. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Oh wow, you got a good run of the Armada guys if that's all you have left. Overload and Tidal Wave will be your expensive ones, I think. Robots are cool. Each company does the types of products it wants to make for the reasons it either wants to make products or noise or money, or not spend excess money in the development of any one thing. I don't know if Hasbro is self-aware enough to care that there are other potentially more interesting entertainment-led or driven transforming toy lines coming. Everything about Hasbro these days seems like they don't actually care about their stuff other than that it makes money, or not, and then we can get rid of people. It's really looks like it's self-destructing or self-imploding versus a bad year or some missteps or something didn't go as planned, that big launch didn't do it or whatever. This seems more tactical to change the entire fabric of what it is they're doing. And therefore, I don't know if they care anymore about a lot of this stuff. Yeah, they had that pirate ship, which was really cool. So it has a Brave essence as well, although it has better articulation than Brave. But that kind of just chunky, feel-good designs. I don't know. We will talk about it more, I am sure, because it's going to come up. Hasbro seems really comfortable just slowly decaying. Unfortunately, it seems like they are enjoying the licensing. Yeah, no, I mean, I think when you look at Loyal Subjects, Super 7, Lego, Blockies, YOLO Park, across the company, Basic Fun does Littlest Pet Shop now. The company in Florida has been doing Lincoln Logs for years. You can get other companies to make this stuff or leverage your tooling library so you don't have to, and just rake in the money. If you aren't someone who wants to make things, there's ways to make money without making things. It's just the adjustment for us who are used to Hasbro wanting to make things and making great things often. It's just like, well, why would you change? What's going on? And it all comes from the top. I don't think they value the expense and effort it takes to make, mass-produced items in the same way that maybe past generations of leaders did. And coming from Magic the Gathering, like Chris Cox did, the overhead is very low. It's strategic planning, it's game planning, it's artwork development, and then marketing. You just have to print the cards. That's not hard to do, or expensive to do, or location limited to do, whereas the plastic manufacturing has a lot more hurdles. And I just don't think they view those hurdles as worth it anymore. And given the political climate and everything globally that's happening around green initiatives, tariffs, if you want to say that, everything else, we're not where we were 15 years ago as an industry, as a toy industry for sure. And then that trickles down to toy collecting, toy making. So, yeah, I kind of have been just watching. I haven't commented a lot beyond, I think they're going to become a licensing house, but you can just really see that they don't want to make things. So we'll see where that goes. They had more layoffs this week. A smaller amount of people, but people nonetheless that went into work thinking they had a job and then didn't. So is that sustainable though? Does Hasbro make enough off those licensing deals just to sit back? Well, if you were to let go everybody of a particular consequence that develops product and QAs the product, engineers the product, all the way down the line, if you chose to make a heck of a lot less product, and yeah, you could make that financially sound, because you'd be paying the top people and the deal makers, kind of in the IP lawyers. That you could definitely make enough money if you had good brands and made good partnership deals. So that way they almost don't have to expend a lot of money. It's all more about the money coming in without making anything and shipping anything and having returns and worrying about that stuff. So that's the watch out. If they're going to move to Boston, watch out for that. Watch out for bigger layoffs. Watch out for a splitting of the company, where maybe there's the C-suite goes to Boston and they do all their licensing stuff up there and make those deals. And there's a small little creative pod that has to remain behind for contractual obligations of creation. They can't farm out Transformers with Takara. So, I can imagine there's some sort of creative pod, but not as big as you think, and maybe it could be spun off to a different type of company, and maybe you don't pay those people the same way. These are the imaginations in my head as I think about it. But Warden, to your point, passionate people, sometimes they don't want to hear from. If you're there just to make money and shareholder value, this, that, or the other, some the perception of some nerdy designer saying why you should or shouldn't do something not only seems foolish, but like, hey, what's this guy focused on? I'm not saying that's what happened with John, but that's the kind of thing that happens. Like, they're there to make money, while a lot of the designers and sculptors and a bunch of people are there to make cool stuff. And if you want to make cool stuff over making money, you're gone. And again, that's not necessarily what John did, but there's a lot of us like John that were there and start adding up salaries, and they want more and more revenue. Cut, depending on their level, 3 to 8 people, you saved yourself $1 million or $2 million, potentially, in overall perks and benefits and everything else. So it's going to be interesting. I assume Takara has been the biggest push for Jen to keep going. I don't know. I think the partnerships that they do these days clearly are steeped in, lore and tradition. There's no I could be way wrong. I don't know for a fact, but there is no way there was a situation where I could have brought up Dezaris or Victory Saber or any of these kind of things they've done for Pulse. It would have been way too Japanese for anything I could have done. So the fact that they are doing them now, it's largely because Takara needs those items, and Hasbro's like, yeah, that's something new and different, so at least we can get in there. Yeah. I hear you, Pad Flip. I hear you. I've always tried to maintain not the corporate face, because I haven't worked at Hasbro for a long, long time. But, there's people I respect that still work there or have been. So I'm never the type that gets too up in their grill about how they do things. I know how they do things, and I know the business takes precedent over all of it. And so it's easy for me to go, well, we'll see how it goes. But the longer I've been away, the more I can take an objective view, like, what are they doing? They're just screwing this stuff up. Why? And I get, I can see the long-term gain by this approach for a very small group of people. But it is tragic to see, the hundreds of people that I used to work with, losing jobs or opportunity or industries altogether. It's safe to say when I left Hasbro, I'm, not at the same level in the industry that I certainly was. So it is disappointing, and I'm being more open every week, it seems like, to kind of share my actual internal views about it. But it is kind of a shame. That's how I see it. People who don't want to make stuff are now in charge of all these brands. So what's the easiest way for us to make money? Not stuff. License it out. Yeah. When I was there, congratulations for graduating. Wind Charger. I would definitely give the design team some slack. When I was trained in the mid 90s, it was really, not that it was design first, but we had a place at the table and strong views that we were allowed to articulate. And I got pretty good at articulating my thoughts and didn't have too many heads until later to get my vision across. Okay, so it's a largely kind of charismatic kind of thing that can help you at a company like this. And like, let's try this, let's do that, let's do, and now this has been happening for the last, even before I left a little bit, so almost 10 years. You feel like they've turned design more into short order cooks, like execute this for us, more so than ideas bubbling out of creative people. It's like business need planning, and then throw it to the creative people to execute. And if they don't, then we'll get somebody else. So I give a tremendous amount of slack to the actual designers, who are kind of at the mercy of larger moving parts that they don't have the ability to push back against. Whereas when I was more active, that would have been my default, was pushing back almost, or logic trails and stuff. And they don't want to get into those discussions anymore. You're not talking to passionate people, you're talking to business people. And if you're going to tell them that it'll cost more money, or it'll take more time, or take more time and cost more money, they just think, why are you here? What's your focus? So the whole thing as a creative endeavor has certainly changed. And it's a shame. It's a shame. So now you have to go to kind of different types of places to get that zone or execution for yourself. And those smaller places aren't structured or have the institutional know-how of a Hasbro. So even when you go to a different company, you're kind of starting over in a way, unless you go to Mattel or Lego. Maybe Spin Master. I'll give Spin Master a little shout out. Princeton Phalix 59, how are you? So that's my today's diatribe on where I see Hasbro going and how some of this could play out. But we are halfway through the year. The tariffs haven't entirely landed, nor do we know after 90 days what some of it's going to end up being. Even if the Chinese tariffs with American going to America end up at 30 something, that they're still going to have layoffs. They're still going to have to make some toy lines smaller, or some smaller toy companies are going to have continued problems. We're kind of in this 90-day thing, but it could come back and really burn everybody. And we don't know yet. So kind of weird. I got one more blocky over the last week. I don't think I had this one the last time I showed my blockies. So I got a Thundercracker. And I had been previously complaining that I wish the heads had more movement. It sounds like the newer ones have a double ball stem, so you can get movement in the head and the neck, which is a good innovation. I don't know why they almost didn't do that from the beginning. Everybody knows that, but at least they're doing it. I know you talk smack about the Prime toy line. Are there any of those figures you actually like, or at least respect? Oh, I don't mean to be talking smack about them. I like Onyx Prime a lot. Solus Prime's good. My Cronus doesn't have the head design that I originally envisioned, but it's continued to change a bunch of times, so it's not really fair, but he's supposed to be a very contemplative, more Asian-looking face. I threw out that in my mind it was Yoke-san at at Botcon. It wasn't supposed to be a caricature of Yoke-san, but his calm demeanor. Because in my story, the Minicon, Micronus, has the ultimate power. Might be one of the most powerful Transformer beings. And he has to basically stay in constant meditation for fear of that energy getting redirected in a bad way, right? So, I wanted that kind of chill, meditative vibe. But I like Onyx. Oh, I'm at the 2012 Prime line. Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like enough times con that it's a great show. The voice acting is great, the lighting is great, the directing is great, the character design is great. It just didn't activate the things that we had built into other shows to activate purchase, repeated purchase, whether it was a secondary collection or a build-a kind of figure or, minicons, or it just was transforming figures. And at that, there wasn't also a lot of variety of some forms, there wasn't certain things. So, so I just think Prime was a missed opportunity. Great for the Hasbro studio, great for the launching of the hub, did not do anything for the toy line at a time when, had that toy line had a couple other bells and whistles, then, would have been able to stand harder with the movies and stuff. And I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of duplicate names. RID and Cyberverse, I think, has been used a few times. But yeah. But when we think back, I think we should look back at Prime as a nice series. But as time goes on, I don't know if it'll have the same resonance that some of the other series do. Even though it might have been one of the higher budgeted, most professional, quote unquote, productions that have been executed for the brand. Yeah, that first edition stuff, I wasn't connected to that at the time. I was worrying about movie 2 or whatever was happening. I still don't understand what that first edition stuff was exactly and how it kind of came and went so fast. But that's another thing to figure out for another day. But have you ever looked into fan design figures? Not third party per se, but strictly fan made. I've come across them. I don't know if I've ever sought them out, but it's a hard thing to do. I think the Bay movies came out too frequently without enough of a plan. That's safe to say. They're not sequels. They're continuity blips. Boop, boop, boop. They don't connect together to any greater story. And I definitely wish that Transformers 1 would have come out in even 2015, a full, almost pushing towards 10 years after the first film, but, get that origin story out there earlier so that then you can tell any story from that point on and people have a concept of the origin and why these guys fight, and wherever you pick it up, that's where, you'll kind of grasp it. By the time you got to 7 movies in or whatever it is, to do the origin story, it's going to be tough. Just going to be tough. I think a lot what happens with these brands, like it or not, often, if Transformers didn't have the compelling puzzle play, often what happens is things live in the ether, and the older brother's into it, maybe the younger brother gets into it, and they're both into it for a while. But then time goes on, and maybe that next show's not as good, or maybe that movie didn't land. Maybe the remake was unsatisfying, and it just gets the love and connections kind of get bled away over time. And I think we were building up Transformers to be the first movie and Prime and the animated, I will add, to deliver different tastes of the brand, and then it just kind of became more Camaro Bumblebee, and that didn't help. Some of the next shows didn't land either. 2005 or 2015, is that Car Robot or RID? Sorry, the second RID. You guys don't ever talk about that one. That one disappeared before it arrived. The Bumblebee Cyber First Series, whatever that was, didn't do much either. So I don't know. I think the orange has been getting squeezed for all its juice for a while. And without summoning new mountains, it just kind of feels a lot of the same anymore. Whereas the early 2000s, it was clearly going up. But that's what happens when you get major motion pictures and multiple toy lines and multiple animations and video games. People, that becomes, like I was saying, that becomes, oh, that was my cousin was into that, or my big brother was into that. I want my own thing, and I'm going to move into the Marvel Universe, or, insert whatever. And that happens too. You cannot, none of these things stay on top forever. Trust me. If you wanted to talk about Star Wars in 1989, 1991, even those of us who grew up with it and loved it, it was kind of like, yeah, Star Wars is dead. We're like, no one cares anymore. Lucasfilm isn't even using it in their Bantha Tracks newsletter. They're barely even talking about Star Wars. It's all young Indiana Jones and stuff. And so every brand does go from its heights to let that rest for a while. We're oversaturated, and Transformers might have overstayed its welcome in the big stage, right? With the feature films, not the everyday, all day kind of thing that also can exist. Yeah, RID 15 is the last stuff I was connected to, the upfront, trying to find new forms for robots and things, but that's where I left it. But yeah, a reset at some point could be coming, but again, in the modern market, if they are focused on immediate, easy results, are they going to want to do the hard work of recommunicating all the things you need to communicate, that it's not like what it was and now it's something different? They may ride Optimus and Bumblebee into the ground just because that's easier than showing up with a rat and a monkey, is my opinion. Doesn't seem like they have the appetite for that anymore. That just costs money. There's just worry about where it goes, worry about what eyeballs sees it. Does it really promote sales of other things. I wonder if they would even embark on a project like that. So, got a little downer here, but I think that's my response to seeing the love of what we all know is a great brand at Botcon last week, and I'm going to see it again in a few weeks at TFCon Toronto. Those of us who do enjoy this brand and the puzzle play and the years of characters and different stories and styles, we're not going anywhere. But what does Hasbro want the future of the brand to be is a very intriguing question to me. Because you're right, it cannot be Red Truck for another 10 years. I don't believe it can't be. Anyway. Thoughts on the new Skybite? I'm not sure I've seen the new Skybite. Did we see, is it brand new, debut, or we actually see the toy now? Because I remember that was coming out. But I'll check it out. Oh my gosh, 20th of the first movie. I guess. Yeah, they could do some Skybound designs, but that's not going to go very far. I mean, comics is not, that's not going to move the needle too much other than having cool designs to pull from. But people coming from the comics to the toy aisle might not be realistic. Well, actually, Beast Wars was designed in Rhode Island. The first wave was already done before it came to Kenner. When those guys came to Kenner and showed what they were doing, they already had the videotape commercial with the alligator and bat. I know the polar bear and that whole first wave, the razor beast and rat trap. That all those guys were already complete. Some of the first Beast Wars designed in Cincinnati were the shark, the mosquito, the praying mantis, the ant, the microverse sets. Those were some of the ones that were early develops. What was the best gimmick and why was it Mech Alive? I like gimmicks across the board too much to pick just one, but I will always say that the Transformers brand is one of the best in general, in spite of what I say about Prime, because at the base level you do have the puzzle play, and then you are able to overlay that with character and character function, and you get the magic that I think is Transformers. If it was just the puzzle play, that would get boring over time. But when you do that and you get things can pop out or light up or secret guys come out of little tape decks, that's really what's can be cool about Transformers. Mech Alive could be a whole conversation. It's didn't end up exactly as we envisioned, but it was probably like a lot of features. What happens is, and I could talk about this in depth at some point, but any one feature set, so gimmicks, let's use mini-cons, right? You're putting a key in and something happens. Usually a flip out, a drop down, an extend thing. How many of those how many times can you come up with a new way to have gravity just drop something, like Blur's wings? Or, so even within your feature set, you run out of variety within your feature set, which is another reason to change the overall gimmick in the next series. Because, let's go back to superpowers. If, you can squeeze legs and make arms move, or you can squeeze arms and make legs move. You can twist torso, make kick or punch that way. Maybe if you want to twist torso, have neck extend, or chest torso extend, you can do that as well. But maybe you can find a way to do a side kick versus a front kick. Maybe you can figure out a way to do an uppercut and then across the body. Oh, we're going to make the whole torso pivot when we squeeze the legs. Great innovation. But at a certain point, you only have so many of those, and it becomes repetitive, because there's only so much you can do with the constraints of an action figure. So I'll throw that out there as well. Were you hands-on with the design side of the Beast Wars Microverse stuff? I had that arachnid as a kid. I was not, but I watched them make it, and I worked a little bit on the Batman micro stuff, only from like some early concept things. There was a whole other team that did Microverse. But because that was a theme, a sub-theme, which was in the world of Polly Pockets and Mighty Max at the time, for those who don't know, nice-sized items that somehow open up, and there's little figures and things to do in a kind of a micro environment. So that was big in the Kenner umbrella. So Beast Wars had to do the Kenner umbrella stuff. Just like in Batman, we did Karate Fighters. That was also done in other segments of Kenner Hasbro products. Mecha Live was meant to bring more richness and secondary movement that you weren't in control of, that made it feel like there was more magic happening. Also, we initially tried to make it so like the first motion part of a Bay Transformer was what we would start with, crack Bumblebee at the windshield and hood, but after a while those ILM models got so technically amazing, and he didn't want to follow the same transformation sequence at each time either. So the starting point with Mecha Live kind of fizzled out for us, but it didn't matter. The play was still pretty fun. CD Freedom, how are you? Well, I'm just wrapping up a couple loose end diatribes about the overall longevity of brands and how they need to change a little bit. I'm kind of paraphrasing what we've been talking about. And what needs to remain to keep them going, why they need to change, how often maybe they need to change, and where we are currently with Transformers and how that fits into the whole process. Andrew, you made it, but we're almost at the end. Sorry. Started at 9 today. I figure the weeks I can do 9, I'll do 9. Just to not have everybody be on late nights. To that end, if you check out the ArcherMonster.com shop, I still have, I've counted them up, probably about 15 or so volume 2s that aren't already pre-signed and sketched. So if you haven't got that and you're interested, I've got plenty of volume 3 left. I will have that. Well, I'll bring whatever I have of these and volume 3 to Toronto, which I'm looking forward to. Colin puts on a great show. And I still have whatever's left on the website of the instruction art drawings. I'm in the process of doing a few new ideas on those. Going to do some upgrades, like a adult hot shot, stuff like that. But we'll see. So if anybody has recos for who they want to see, even if you're not interested in purchasing one, which they were all for sale when I put them up, unless they were a commission. But if you just want to see certain characters, hit me up on the Instagram and let me know. Sometimes the choice of character, I've drawn a bunch of them now, so I'm kind of always like, who should I do next? So I'll take suggestions if you got them. The Bay Film toy lines for the last real-time Transformers was great, about having a lot of new characters and designs. Yeah, that was our big flex. The world has shifted a little bit, and again, they put those movies out so in rapid succession that it feels like there was always Transformer movie product on the shelves there for a decade, right? Wind Charger. Kirk Bazigian would always ask, what does it do other than walk and move? That's the question that they need to ask. Yep, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. It's a given that they're a great puzzle and that they're going to walk and move. Now what do? What if you did an evolution style set of pieces of staple characters in Armada Energon toy line? Yeah, could do that. We worked hard on the movie line to make them just as good of products as we did on any other line, play value wise and interest wise, and we just had the sheer volume pump out. I mean, they were doing Energon redecos and all kinds of stuff, right, at the low end. And I keep saying it, but the fatigue of so many items being pumped through the system in a fast succession every couple of years, new movie blitz, it had to wear a fair amount of the people down. It just had to. It wasn't a collection. One thing that I will definitely say about the Transformer fans I met certainly early on, so 2000, 2001, 2003, 4, 5, there was a real belief and an interest in buying every item. And in some cases, buying every variation of every item, which can cause you a lot of grief. But if that's how you want to collect, that's how you want to collect. And we made a lot of Unicron trilogy product, and we added a lot of different segments. But once that movie stuff hit, boy, oh boy, you couldn't possibly easily keep up with everything. And I don't know if that changed the trajectory of the brand, but it certainly made certain people slow down and or get out of it, because you get into the passion of it and then you're like, oh, this is never ending. And then we all look at our books at some point and go, I have X number of dollars here and I'm not even close to being done. And you couldn't collect it all. And I think that some of the magic for some people was lost when you can't collect them all. I don't know what percentage, but even if it doesn't get you out, it there's a disappointment. Like, I'm not going to be able to find those guys or whatever. And I think that had something to do with it too. I'm not a big fan of anniversary lines. It's weird to brag about how old your brand is, especially if you want to appeal to younger generations. Well, that is the push-pull. We have great knowledge, and we got years of data and research, and it's sold X billion over these years, and you want to use all that data to shine up, that you got this relevant brand. But at the same time, to someone who's looking for something new, they're just, whoever that is, an audience, a buyer, whatever, they might just go, oh, well, that's all been done before. Let's go a whole different direction. So Beast Wars was a great example of that. Anniversaries do give toy companies a chance to do one-off items and celebrate a little bit of what they've invested in. They usually do pretty well if you handle it correctly. But I take your point that it definitely is, a trophy to your age, if done horribly. The sheer variety in the Bay toys is really impressive. The fact that the action figures of an ice cream truck and a toaster on shelves at the same time is nuts. Yep. We took every squeeze we could get. I think Gearbots shows that in the first film, with how Frenzy acted. Gave us a whole permission structure. Things like the ice cream truck or the toaster or the Mountain Dew bot. All those things gave us chances to try different things for sure. Pretty wild though. Yeah, and that's CD Freedom. That is why every segment has a whole different style, hopefully. So oh, this is something new and something different. Again, we talk about the, Star Wars action figure packaging. If it was up to the super fans, that thing would never deviate. It'd be the same size, same color, same arrangement, forever. But you do want your audience to know, hey, there's new stuff, or we're updating things, or look at this. So you don't pass it by, and you got to do that by changing out elements of color or shape or package. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yep. I mean, that's like any fashion industry. It is a fine line between coming out with a bold new statement for what the future direction is, with your fall collection, versus going, well, we're really good at boots and trench coats, so we're always going to have boots and trench coats, and people get kind of used to boots and trench coats, and you do it really well, but they're like, oh, okay, another trench coat. So it's a weird balance, and that's what the, I would say the game that I was playing for years. What balance of nostalgia, newness, innovation, classicness do you pull? What levers are you pulling at any time for what reasons, and pitching those reasons? Yeah, the Real Gear guys were fun, and the names were mostly odd, but we loved doing those because they were different forms. You get stuck, dealing with 4 wheels and a windshield on everything, and while it's never boring, the challenge of how do you make a cell phone, how do you make a watch, how do you make a handheld game thing, and then what kind of robots do those give you? And they're gonna be very different than the car robots, just from their form factors, and that was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun. All right. So with that, I'm gonna close up Botcon 2025 again with thanks for everybody that gave me some great things. Definitely good times. We'll see what happens with it next year. The facility that they currently have my understanding is getting closed for refurbishing and updating, so it will be somewhere different, is my understanding, next year. So eager to see what happens with that. And again, I'll be at TFCon Toronto for sure. Don't know about Chicago quite yet, but there's a good chance I will be in Chicago. Yeah. What do we got here? Chris is pulling on lever, but in the opposite direction. Chris. I don't know what that one is related to. Thanks for another great stream. Yeah, good topics tonight. Kind of had a good discussion about kind of the state of the business and the thought process of Hasbro and these franchises. So we'll see. We can compare some of what we talked about tonight, in 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and see if anything has come to pass. Chris Cox. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. I mean, they got a different attitude. To each his own. If that's how they want to run the company, I'm not gonna fight again for the old way. But you can tell that they're completely changing the thought process. Yeah. All right. So. Timu, robots are cool. Good question. CD Freedom, Wind Charger, El Kevo, Ninjatron. See, Dia, Ninjatron. You were quiet tonight. You must be doing something else. Patrick Brown, always good to hear from you. Ken, wherever you are, thanks for popping in. We need to catch up. I was thinking about you a week ago about going, I have not talked to Ken. Check out the Slag podcast tomorrow. I thank everybody for being here. Definitely, if you have an eye on an art or commissions for Toronto, let me know that too. I can get those out ahead of time. I'm trying to pay a few more bills, so I'm happy to take some commissions if people are interested. So hit me up on the Instagram about that. Cool, Ninja. Yeah. I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to do some stickers for Toronto. We'll see. All right, everybody. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good weekend. I hope you stay cool in the heat wave that's coming for some of us. And I will see you next Friday. All right?